Hi, in this video we're going to review percentages and then we're going to solve some percent problems using algebra. So first of all, let's remember what percentages are. So let's say that you got two different quiz scores, maybe in the same class or in two different classes, and you got 42 out of 50 in one and 17 out of 20 on another. Which is the higher score? So which one do you think is higher? It's a little hard to compare, isn't it? Because 42 out of 50 and 17 out of 20, they're out of different amounts. So percent actually makes it easier to compare two things. So just want to remember that percent means per 100. Cent stands for 100, like 100 cents in a dollar. A century is 100 years. So that word cent means 100. So if we could compare both of these numbers out of 100, then we could compare them more easily. Now, 42 out of 50, if we multiplied both of those, numerator and denominator, by 2, we could get this out of 100. So that would be 84 out of 100. The other score, 17 out of 20, what would we multiply the bottom by to get 100? If you said 5, you're right. So 20 times 5 is 100. I know that because there's 20 nickels in a dollar. And I don't know what 17 times 5 is, though. 85. Okay, so these scores were very close together. This one translates or is equivalent to 84 out of 100, while this one is 85 out of 100. So this one is a little bit better. Okay, now you might be saying not every number it goes into 100 evenly, and so there's got to be a better way. So if we had a denominator of 24 or 18 or something that doesn't go into 100 quite so nicely, there's another way to do it. If we take 42 divided by 50 on our calculator, that gives us a decimal. That's saying we're taking the part out of the whole, and it gives us 0.84 out of 1, or 84 out of 100. So 0.84 translates to 84%. This is saying 84 100ths, which is 84%. Let's take 17 out of 20. 17 divided by 20 on the calculator, and that is 0.85. So the part out of the whole gives us 85 out of 1, or 0.85 out of 1, or 85 out of 100. So this is 0.85, which equals 85%. Okay, so notice what we do with the decimal. If we get a decimal, we need to move it to the right 2 places, and that gives us our percentage. So let's practice. Or if we started with a percentage, we would need to move it to the left to get our decimal. So we need to practice going back and forth between percents and decimals and percents. So here we're starting with a decimal, and to get the percentage 0.5, think of it as half. That is 50%. So if you want to check yourself, you can pause the video and try these and then check your answers. 93, I'm going to move it to the right, is 93%. There's a cool little memory trick that actually a student showed me. It's D to P. Decimal to percent, percent to decimal. That's something you can easily write on any quiz or test if you want help remembering which way to move your decimal. It's saying if you're starting with the decimal, you go 2 to the right. If you're starting with the percent, you go 2 to the left. And it's in alphabetical order, D to P. Why 2 places? That's because it's out of the number 100, which has 2 zeros or makes up 2 of our digits, 2 place value digits. Okay, so 0.06 is actually going to be 6%. 1.2, what do? I have only one digit there, so I need to add a 0, and that's actually 120%, right? 1.2, 1 is greater than 1 whole, so 1 is 100%, and then we move it over, that's 120%. Another way you can remember which way to move the decimal, this is more what I do, is I think of one that I know. Like 0.5 is a half, so that should be 50%. That's one that if I'm not sure, I'll write out 0.5 is 50%, and then that helps me remember which way to move the decimal. Okay, let's go the other way. We don't have the decimal, but we have the percentage. So again, test yourself by pausing this. 80% is less than 100, so it's going to be 0.8 or 0.80. You can always write a 0 afterwards. Or not, doesn't matter. 150% is going to be more than 1 because it's over 100. So 1.5 or 1.50. We're moving these over twice each time. Oh, yes. 0.165. 3 digits there, right? But it's not over 1, it's 16.5%. So wherever the decimal is, I go 2 to the left, and that's where it's going to land. And then 2%, I'm going to have to add a 0. 0.02. Okay, so that's a little review of decimals and percentages. We're going to need that now because we're going to work on some percentage problems, but we're going to use algebra for them. So you might have another way of doing these, and that's great. I want you to keep that way, but also learn another way if this is new to you, because this is more of a way of solving the problems that lets us use our algebra skills. Okay, so move calculator. Okay, so let's talk about this formula. Using equations to solve percent problems. So we're going to use this equation that's A equals P times B. Peanut butter is how I remember it. A stands for the amount, like it's the part. P is the percentage. But we need to write it as a decimal. That's why we practice going back and forth up there. And then the B is the base, or the whole. So for example, in our first example with the quiz scores, I was mentioning part out of whole. The whole is the total that it's out of, and the part was the score that you got. So part out of whole. So in that example, A would be the 42, the part, and B would be the whole, which is 50. Okay, so we're going to use this formula. So I'm going to move it up here quite a ways. And let's do a problem. So this says, write an equation and solve it algebraically. Check it mentally, because we always want to make sure it makes sense. And then write the answer in a complete sentence. Okay, so you might have done, like I said, you might have done these type of problems before. What is 37% of 42? And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but we're going to use the algebra formula here. So I'm going to write out A equals P times B, or just A equals PB. You don't have to have the dot, because two things are next to each other. That's automatically implies multiplication. Okay, so what's important is we need to identify which is which. So what is, okay, the is part, see how it's A equals or A is? Equals kind of translates to is. So the what part, the is the A. The quantity that they're talking about with the is. 37% of, so we don't know our A, so we're going to leave that A. 37 we need to change into a decimal to do any math with it. So we change it to 0.37. Then the of means it's our b. So of goes with the base. Now I could put parentheses or dot or just b. So that's 0.37 times b. Okay, so just like we were doing before when we plugged in our numbers into geometric formulas and then solved, this is a similar thing. We're plugging into, oh, haha, I should have put in my 42 there though. I don't think my whiteout is handy, so I'll just erase it. I should have put in my 42. So this is actually one where we don't have to solve because our variable's already isolated. I knew there was something wrong when I had two variables in my equation. So 0.37 times 42 is 15.54. Okay, so let's now check it mentally and see, does this answer make sense? So it says, write an equation and solve it algebraically. In this case, we just had to simplify. Check it mentally. So what is 37% of 42? 37% is a little more than a third. It's less than half. So does this seem like a reasonable number? I think it does. If we got something bigger than 42, that would definitely not be right. Or something much smaller, but this seems about right. So that's what I mean by check it mentally. So then let's just write our sentence. So 15.54 is 37% of 42. You can also check it as you're writing your sentence. Okay, let's try one where we actually have to solve this time. Same setup, A equals P times B, and we're going to figure out what we're given. Is it A, P, or B? We have to be given 2 out of the 3, and we solve for the third one. So what percent? Okay, so that's P, right? We don't know P. Of 60, so which one was the of? That's the B. And is 52 is the A. So the of is the amount you're taking it out of, so that's the base or the whole. Okay, so let's plug these in now. We know our A is 52. We don't know P, so that's why we're going to keep the letter there, the variable there. And our base is 60. Okay, so this is where I was saying, now we have everything plugged in, and we need to do an algebra step here because we have 60p, or p times 60. We want to know what p is, so we're going to divide by 60, and that will isolate the variable, but whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. I'm out of space down below, so I'm going to go over to the right. 52 divided by 60 is 0.86666 repeating. So we could write 0.86 with an overbar, or we could decide to round. Notice wherever we round, we're going to get a 7 after that. So I'm going to round to 87%. It doesn't tell us exactly where to round, but P equals 0.87. Let's put approximately equal to. Or, since we want to know the percentage, that's 87%. You could put 86.7%. That would be fine too. And then our answer is, let's say, what percent of, let's say 52 is 87, or about 87% of 60. That's just one way to write your sentence. There's lots of equivalent sentences you could write. And the last one for this video, 24% of what number equals 50.4? So let's start the same way. A equals P times B. 24%. Okay, so 24%. That's our P. It's a dead giveaway when you see that percentage. Even though there's the of there, that's going to go with of what number. So of what number, that's our B. We don't know B this time. Is our A. So 50.4 is our A. Okay, so let's plug that in. Okay, so we know our A is 50.4 equals, our P is 0.2524, sorry. And we don't know our B. I got distracted by thinking about these three different problems, so I'll go there in a second. Okay, so A equals PB. So 50.4 equals 0.24 times B, which we don't know. So we are solving for B this time. So we have 0.24 times B, so we need to divide by 0.24 on both sides, and that'll tell us what B equals. Might be approximately, so I'm going to wait to write that. 50.4 divided by 0.24 is 210. Came out even. So B equals 210. Okay, let's see, does this sound reasonable? 0.24 is about, it's almost a quarter, 25%. Of what number? And 50 seems like it's a little less than a quarter of 210, because 50 would be a quarter of 200, because 50, 100 times 2 is 200. So that sounds about right. If we got something, you know, really small or really big, that wouldn't make sense. So we could say 24% of 210 is 50.4. Or we could say 50.4 is 24% of 210. You get the idea. I didn't check this one mentally, so I want to do that. What percent of 60 is 52? 87% of 60. 87 is getting up there, right? Like almost 90%. So it should be fairly close to 60, and it's 52. So that seems reasonable. Okay, so what I was thinking about before is there are only 3 types of these questions, right? We have to be given 2 out of the 3 numbers, so there's only one that can be missing. On the first one, A was missing, and that was just multiplying on the right-hand side. In the second one, P was missing, and we divided both sides. In the third one, B was missing. So try, when we get to class, you'll have some of these to try, and there's only 3 different types of these problems. Okay, that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one or in class.